You're listening to the Loving Your Own Soul podcast, and I'm your host, Britt Olson. Guided by my own intuition, my intention is to deliver genuine conversations centered around health and wellness, spirituality, self-expression, and culture. In this space, I will provide you with real-life stories, theories, and inspiring perspectives to help you uncover and tap into your own true potential. I'm so grateful you've chosen to tune in with me on this mindful exploration to living a more fluid life through a deeper connection to the soul. Now let's dive into today's journey. Hello everyone and welcome. If you are new around here, I'm your host, Britt Olson, and I'm so grateful to have you joining us and tuning in here today. So usually my little solo episodes are typically my shorter weekly digests where I will go into a topic that is either trending or of importance or just something interesting in the wellness and spirituality world that I will riff on for anywhere from 10, maybe 25 minutes, just kind of short episodes. But this week's weekly digest, so to say, it's more of a solo episode, but it is concerning my recent miscarriage that I experienced in April into May of this current year, 2021. So I will say that I don't even really know where to begin, to be honest. This has been an episode that I've tried to record many times. It hasn't worked out, but I do believe that the timing is right today. And I'd be lying if I said it wasn't emotional. It's really emotional. It's a hard topic to talk about. There's a stigma around it, and that is one of the main reasons why I really wanted to share my journey with my first pregnancy, first trimester, and then miscarriage. Most importantly, miscarriage, because far too many women and men as a couple have to go through this, predominantly the female, but that's not to say that the male does not feel pain as well. It's just a little bit different in this experience. So for me, I just really wanted to open up this conversation, try to kind of reduce the stigma that surrounds it, and hopefully help someone on the other end. It's hard for me to talk about. I'm going to try not to cry. This is not an easy thing to talk about. I don't know if I'm going to cry or not. We'll see. I definitely had a lump in my throat. My eyes felt heavy upon sitting down to record this, and I didn't know how it was going to go. However, now that I've started talking, I feel pretty confident in myself and what I have to share. And to that point, because this is a hard topic for me to speak on, I made a couple bullet points, but I'm really just going to speak from the heart here. But with that, I will probably miss things. I'll have more episodes about this process. This is really just the beginning of where I'm going with all of this. I probably might say things incorrectly as well, say the wrong thing or, whatever have you. So just please know that I mean well. My intention is pure, and I'm really just here to share my story to help those on the other end feel less alone. Maybe you can help a friend if you're not experiencing this yourself. And like I said, really just kind of break up the stigma around this topic because it's a hard thing. It's not easy. It's probably why it's not talked about, but it really should be. So that is that. My husband, Dan, and I, we actually did a little Instagram video a couple weeks ago about this when we thought that we would be doing a pregnancy announcement. It ended up being just an opening and an announcement about our miscarriage. And again, too, I'm not holding these conversations for sympathy. I'm really just here just to open up and help people. I've received so much love, so much support. While it is all welcomed, I really don't need more of it. So this is not for sympathy. However, I do appreciate any feelings that you have or anything you want to equally share with me about this episode. I'm always open, but I'm so grateful for everyone that I have in my life. And while this isn't an easy topic to talk about, one of the things that, we actually got a new puppy a little while ago. So while I'm trying to record this, I'm also playing puppy mom life, which has been a lot of fun, but you might hear our dogs in the background. Team Mocha, who some of you have seen before, and then Maverick is our newest puppy, some wonderful Australian Labradoodles. But anyway, what I was saying was that, I'm really not doing this for sympathy, as I really had just so many of our friends and family, community have really been with us and have really helped get us through the initial shock, the intensity, the pain. It never goes away, that's for sure. You just kind of figure out how to cope with it. But, the intensity of it, emotionally, physically, mentally, energetically, it is unlike anything. And then there's also a lot that follows after too. Like, I'm coming up on a month into this process. The day we officially found out about our miscarriage was Tuesday, April 20th. 420 will always have a new meaning for me. But slowly the fog, it clears, the veils lift, but it does take time. But I do just want to thank everyone who has been there for us, whether it's been messages, we've received so many flowers, so many intentional gifts, phone calls, gosh, what else? Just love and support. A lot who have done just really intentional acts of service for me, meals, checking in on me, taking care of me. I mean, I just have so many to thank. And then also so many of my clients and community and those who have really been with me as I've had to cancel things and then reschedule again. So thank you immensely for all of your flexibility throughout all this. I mean, every week, every day has looked completely different. And, the journey, it really doesn't just start or end in one day. Like I said, I'm about a month into this journey, and quite frankly, I would have thought I would have recorded this sooner, but there's obviously a reason why I couldn't each time, and I felt like I was getting closer and closer, and here I am. And now, one other thing before we really get into this, I'm probably rambling at this point. Like I said, be easy on me with this episode, please. But I did just want to put out, just my condolences for anyone listening who's been through a miscarriage, been through losing a child, in the grieving process, who can't get pregnant either, who struggles with their own family relationships and dynamics, is in the grieving process. And to anyone as well, hopefully this is not the case, but it's also life, who may experience this in the future and so forth, or who has a friend going through it, a family member, you don't know what to do, just anyone out there experiencing anything. I'm here, I'm with you, I see you, I hold you. We're all in this together. I truly believe that we are all one. When one is celebrating, we're all celebrating. When one is grieving, we're all grieving as well. And I also, too, I keep saying one more thing. I did just want to make note, too, that all of our journeys are also so different. So if I'm saying something you don't resonate with, that's because it's honestly impossible for us to have experienced or felt the same things. While we can relate on similar levels, it would be literally impossible for us to have the same beliefs, experiences, understandings, emotions, etc. around this one topic. So I honor you for where you sit, and I hope equally so that you'd honor me for where I sit and just where I am and what I'm sharing in the journey as well. There's still a lot of experiencing and a lot of uncovering, expansion and whatnot to be done around this topic. And, if you don't honor me for where I sit or what I have to say, I totally respect that too. And I respect that this may not be for you at this moment in time. So let's jump into why am I sharing about this? I kind of touched on it a little bit, but I did just want to remind that I'm not sharing this for me or for my husband or for my family, but for all of you, whether right now or in the future, like I just said a little bit before this. And, there's not a purpose for this. And I also don't wish this on anyone, but it needs to be talked about. And when we go through certain situations, if you're able to find a little bit of purpose or a little bit of clarity in the pain, it really helps. And it helps you feel less, why me? Why is the world against me? Many of you who have been here for a while know that I absolutely love the phrase, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And in times like this, it's like, how could this ever be for me? Why would something like this be considered for me? I mean, you almost would hear me say that and you'd want to punch me in the face. However, there's always beauty in the breakdown. There's always an element of some kind of a silver lining. And I know for me, I've gone through trying to find so many silver linings, so many little bits of gratitude. And again, it doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't make the situation any less shitty. But having that higher perspective and that deeper perspective and just trying to really hold on to the faith and to the something more, and knowing that the universe does have your back, and sometimes as humans, things hurt. So yeah, this is not for me. This is not for my family. This is not for my husband. This is simply for all of you. And secondly, I'm also sharing this, as I said, it's for all of you, because there are so few resources for women and men as well, and couples and families. And a miscarriage, yes, is a very common thing. Although when you're going through it, to be honest, you really don't want to hear how common it is. I know by saying, oh, it's so common, it happens to so many, you think that intentionally it, gives a little bit of, just makes the other person feel better on the other end. Honestly, again, that statement, it's not something you want to hear when you're going through it. Yes, it is common, sure. That doesn't take away the pain though. So, like I said, there's so few resources out there from what your body goes through. I mean, it is so much more traumatic in the moment. I will get into all of this, but also just like what to expect. And I truly believe in the power of storytelling. And while, yes, others' experiences are not going to be like my own, if you can at least find some sort of connection, it really helps you feel less alone in the process. And it's scary. It's not fun. And for men and women, and unfortunately, this is the reality of what can occur in life. And speaking of life, another reason I wanted to share this is because you can't control life. You can be proactive. You can set your foundations. You can do all the right things when acting with good intention and acting with love and of pure faith. And, that's how we should really all be trying to act. We should always try to be the best we can be, treat our bodies as our temples and our minds and our family. And, I don't need to get into all of that. You all know that. You can also listen back to other episodes for topics around that. But life is still going to happen. You're not going to be able to predict it. You certainly can't control it, but it's really learning how to just kind of float in the ebbs and flows. There's no point in fighting things. It's all about, unfortunately, you just have to surrender. And some of us are meant to have different experiences, and others are going to have other experiences. Not one for the better or for the worse. It's just our individual soul journeys in this lifetime. And then last but not least, I really want to push the stigma around miscarriage. There is so much misunderstanding, and it really doesn't matter whether the child was physically here or still in the womb. You become a mother and a father from the time that you get pregnant. And I will tell you that firsthand. So if you haven't experienced it, and honestly, I think I personally thought a little lightly of the subject until I experienced it firsthand. So if you haven't, I get where you sit. However, again, this episode is for all of you. You become a mother and father from the time you get pregnant. So yeah, it sucks. There's so much misunderstanding, and I get where the misunderstanding comes from, but take it firsthand. It sucks, and it's still losing a child. One of my friends, Deanna, she was on the podcast almost a year ago, actually, which is kind of cool, but she birthed her daughter prematurely, her first daughter, and unfortunately, her daughter never made it out of the hospital. And I believe it was about 3 months into her lifetime here, her daughter passed away, and she lost a daughter. And when I went through this, I told her, I said, I now have a smidge. I told her before, I said, I can't even imagine the pain that you're going through. And that was true. I could try to imagine it, but I couldn't fully imagine it because I hadn't experienced actually losing a child. And I said to her, I don't even remember what I said, but just that how much I felt for her through my experience, because my heart was broken open. And I remember thinking, wow, this is how this feels. Imagine losing an actual child. And she said to me, there's no difference. You still lost a child. And I just really want that to stick with everyone, because it doesn't matter whether the child was here physically or still in the womb. You still became a mother and a father and parents and a couple, and your instinct immediately turns on as how to you're nurturing, whether it's the embryo, the fetus, the growing baby inside of you. You immediately start thinking like a mother, and you become a mother. So anyway, I never understood it until I experienced it. And it's hard to understand what women go through and what a woman walks through. And it's not easy, but the amount of empathy and compassion that has been gained through this experience is, one I didn't want to gain at a club I never thought I would have to join, but I'm really grateful in a way, just because I know I keep getting new glimpses of my purpose here in this lifetime, and this has definitely shown me that I do have a purpose for helping people, and this, I firmly believe, is just a part of living out my soul's journey here in this lifetime. So let's go into our pregnancy story, because this is one that I know a lot of people who I had spoken privately about with when we got pregnant. And that's something too, I mentioned no one should ever have to go through this alone. So when we got pregnant, we waited until we were about 5.5 weeks along, and then we told our parents, and then we also told our super, super close friends, like small handful of close friends, that we were pregnant, because we were so excited. And we also had said too that life happens, and if God forbid something awful should happen, we didn't want to go through that alone, and we would want the support of our family and friends. And also, it's life, and what are we really hiding from? Not ever expecting any of this to happen. And then as the weeks went on, we had slowly told other friends, other people, etc. We were excited. Honestly, we almost did a big pregnancy announcement right before the doctor's appointment that we learned about our miscarriage, simply because we were so confident in it, so confident just in the whole experience. We were like, let's just tell people. But we didn't. We waited until particular doctor's appointment, and that was the appointment that we learned that I was having a miscarriage and that I had actually had a miscarriage. So the baby, the fetus, the embryo inside of me had measured at about 6.5 weeks, when I should have been measuring at about between 11 and 12 weeks, I believe it was. So Dan and I've been prepping my body for a long time now. I was on hormonal birth control for many, many years. I got off of it back in April of 2019. So officially 2 years. No, it would have been a little earlier than that, I think. Anyway, though, I had been off of all birth control. I have a lot of conversations with my body, use things safely, and we had decided this past February that it was time to start trying. and me being the ever curious one, as many of you know me to be, I was like, well, let's just try once and see what happens, and then we'll know from there. Well, sure enough, we tried once and I got pregnant, which is honestly a miracle in and of itself. If for those of you who are familiar with Dan's health journey, my husband's health journey, which has nothing to do with the miscarriage, but it has everything to do with us getting pregnant. He was told when he was going through all of his chronic illness, the main part of the journey, that he may, number one, not be fertile. He may never be fertile again. So that really changed. It just really shook us up. I had always envisioned us having children, and it was such a strong vision. I was like, how is that possible? But okay, we'll adopt. It felt weird. And then honestly, we never really resonated with it or gave it an identity. So his health has come full circle from his crazy diagnosis and everything, unexpected diagnosis. And for us to have gotten pregnant, but then to have gotten pregnant on the first try was such a beautiful gift and a reminder of how far we've come. And also a reminder that we are all in control of our health. Each of us individually, yes, Western medicine, certain prescriptions, procedures, etc., are needed to save your life and quote unquote bring you back to life. However, after that is then really taking the holistic point of view on your health, working on your diet, your stress levels, energetic modalities, healing modalities, physical exercise, sunshine, nature, sleep. I'm missing a lot here. Water, all the things. You've heard me talk about them before, but they really do matter, and they can literally make or break your life. So that is all I will say on that. But us getting pregnant was such a miracle, such a huge blessing on top of it happening on the first try. We just were ecstatic because I know I'm so familiar with how that doesn't happen for everyone. And then the first trimester, I mean, it was so much fun. It was so exciting. To be honest, I was pretty nervous though. I was so excited, but then I wasn't, I think, quite ready for the reality of how much my life was going to change for the better, for sure, but also just a big adjustment, and then how much my body was going to change. It was exciting, but it was really rough, and it showed me that I still had more work to do on myself as well. My hormones went crazy, I think, right at about, so what's interesting too is, I had a miscarriage. However, while the baby had stopped growing inside of me for whatever reason, there was no heartbeat. My body did not know that I was not pregnant anymore. So I continued having all the pregnancy symptoms through the day that we learned we were no longer pregnant, it really messed with my head at first because of how in tune I am with everything. However, because of that, it's a perfect example of the mind-body connection. And sure enough, what took place, I was pregnant. Everything I was doing was for pregnancy, pregnant. Find out we're having a miscarriage. I kid you not. I would say the day after. Really, it was 2 days after because that's when I got my levels checked. But intuitively, I know it was the day after. My body, all my levels started going down. My HGC levels, my pregnancy symptoms. Suddenly, the body understood, we're not pregnant anymore. And that is just a perfect example of that mind-body connection that exists. Telling myself we're pregnant. Suddenly we're not. We understand we're not. And the body understands. And then all my symptoms started dwindling from there, which was rough. But in the first trimester, I really had a really nice first trimester. I was almost out of it. I had a couple more weeks to go when we learned of everything that had taken place. But for me, I had one prenatal that made me pretty queasy for like a week maybe, so I changed that up. And then the weirder thing was that I discovered when I was sitting on a screen, whether my phone or a computer, more so my computer, for far too long, I would get really nauseous, like extremely nauseous, and also got really bad headaches, nausea, just felt it was awful. It was so hard to focus, so hard to get anything done. So I had to take a lot of breaks with going outside and just really breaking that shift from the screen, which was beautiful. But then I actually hit a point where I had to start doing things the quote unquote old school way. And like, instead of typing notes, writing them in a notebook and trying to figure out how I could spend as less time on the least amount of time on the computer or on my phone as possible. So that was kind of interesting. I do think that my spirit baby was really trying to show me boundaries and really trying to help me understand that these screens are not good for me. They're not good for anyone, but really have the ability through my pregnancy symptoms and hormones to really show me, hey mom, this is not good for you. So I get to be the one in control now, and I'm now going to show you in a way that you'll be able to understand, because realistically as humans, it's really hard to understand things until we feel them physically. So there was that side of the first trimester. My breasts, my boobs, they like, no need to be formal here, they like tripled in size. So that was tough. Just seeing them grow. Oops. There goes my puppy. See them grow so quickly. And then on that same side, I had a week where my face just broke out with crazy acne. So that is, just hard in general. And then it all went down from there and went back to normal. Thank goodness. What else happened? Sleep was fine, was eating. I mean, I always eat really, really clean. I really didn't make that many diet choices. I did a lot of intuitive work. I didn't change any of my, diet and lifestyle, really. I did a lot of intuitive work of just understanding what my body needed at the time, what she was craving, made sure, if I were to get sick, that I was getting in a lot of fruits and vegetables in the event, because some people can only handle no food or certain food during the first trimester. So I was like, while I'm feeling great, I might as well get in all those vitamins and nutrients while I can. And then my husband and I, we also went to Costa Rica, Santa Teresa, Costa Rica, which was so much fun. I was right at about 8.5 and 9.5 weeks pregnant at that point. So I survived surfing. My energy levels were super off, so I couldn't quite surf as much as I, would have preferred, but that was okay. My body was also getting really, really bloated as well. So that was tough, as my body was just starting to retain water, watching my body shift a little bit, but it wasn't shifting in the I'm showing yet. So it was more just like, I look puffy, I look bloated. It's hard. I'm not going to lie. Like, it honestly, that was not fun. I kind of was like, can I just start showing already? So I don't know. It's a weird mind game. It's kind of hard to explain. What else? We went hiking. I mean, we just did all the outdoor things. I was honestly really impressed with how much I could still handle while my body was changing so much, because as many of you know or don't know, first trimester can be really hard for a lot. So I was super, super grateful for my whole experience that I had thus far. Let's see, what else? I think that might be it for right now for the first trimester. I will say some things that, how do I say this? So a couple different people will mention, or a couple different people a lot talk about all the unsolicited advice that you get when you're pregnant. And I didn't really understand that until becoming pregnant. And suddenly it was like everyone became an expert on my body, nutrition, what needs to be done, doctors to go to, types of doctors to go to, what to do, what to eat, what not to eat, all different things, what happens to the body, how each trimester feels. I mean, just a lot. And honestly, it was really overwhelming because emotionally you're going through a lot. Everything is changing. And to then have so many people just telling you things that you really didn't need to hear. So I will just say that, like, for anyone moving forward, while I get it, because sometimes I get really excited and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a piece of information that I can share with you. Let me tell you, da-da-da-da-da. However, with pregnancy as a female, especially your first one is, really all I can speak to. It's beautiful. It's so exciting, but it's so overwhelming at the same time. So if you have information or advice or feel the need to share something with the other person, I would just ask them. Instead of sharing, just say, hey, I have something I'd like to share with you. Can I share it with you? Can I, just ask instead of just telling. Because for me, it was really overwhelming. I tried to not judge. I tried to not, get angry or upset or have it hurt my feelings or any of the things. I just kind of, blocked it off and was like, oh, it's okay. They don't know any better. But with the emotions and different things I was feeling, sometimes it did really get to me on certain days. So with anything, just always ask first before kind of jumping in so you can understand the situation and understand how someone is feeling. That's not to say I don't want advice. I love learning new things. There was just certain moments where I didn't want, or I had had a really overwhelming day and I'd had so many people trying to tell me things. And, it's that like fifth person down the line who then is trying to explain things to you that you already know or whatever it is, that we all know how it is. We get overwhelmed at certain times. We can't predict when they're going to happen. They just do happen. No ill will on either side. So in the future, I would just recommend asking. And, same goes for miscarriage and grief and things like that too. Ask to understand a situation before you just openly give your own opinion or advice, and know that no one is an expert. I'm not an expert. There's truly no experts out there. So miscarriage. So then we came back from Costa Rica. I turned 31. Everything was great. We had a couple of different doctor's appointments and things. And then we had our doctor's appointment where we were going to be able to hear the heartbeat for the first time. So we went in for our appointment and we were really excited. However, when the group who we were working with, they went to find the heartbeat and they didn't find a heartbeat. But they said that, it can be common. Sometimes the baby might be sitting further towards the back, etc. Not to fear. And they went ahead and scheduled us for an ultrasound, just so that way we could get some confirmation, see how we felt about everything. So we went to the ultrasound, and first of all, again, no judgment, but we just happened to have the worst ultrasound tech ever. Maybe not the worst, just the most docile, no emotion, inability to really just treat us like human beings. And I get that legally ultrasound techs, without the doctor, can't really get any information. However, that would have been nice to know ahead of time, and then equally just explain that. Our ultrasound tech was very cold, very rude, kind of talked down to us and just didn't treat us respectfully. And then come to find out that this individual also was seeing information and whatever else. We had to have a vaginal ultrasound as well, which is very intrusive, and the whole experience was just really uncomfortable. And then we were left basically with, okay, they'll call you your results, door closes, and the individual leaves the room. So that was super shitty. That was when kind of the red flags started going off a little bit of like, okay, what is happening right now? Shortly after, I received a phone call. My husband, Dan, he had come to meet me. He went back to work. I was in the car. I was actually going to go walk this beautiful lake by us and get some exercise, and just, was kind of like, all right, let me at least enjoy this beautiful day, what's left of it. And then I got the phone call, and it sucked. It was really, really hard. I pulled over. There's really not a way to describe it. It just was like everything got pulled out from underneath of us. It was shocking. It was devastating. It also just didn't feel real either. It was like, what? Like, how? Why? This was not on our radar. I was also checking off for a super low risk pregnancy as well. Everything was coming back like all good. It was going to be low risk. We were great. Nobody was worried either about Dan's health history. Nobody was worried about any family history. Like, everything was just like check, 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 check. It was wonderful. And then to have learned this, it just felt like we literally got the rug pulled out from underneath of us. And, I know that nobody ever anticipates this information, but it hit us out of left field. So I called Dan. I told him he needed to come home. It was really hard. I couldn't really speak at that point. It was just it was tears. It was just tears, flood of emotions. And he came home. He met me at home. And it was really tough. We held each other. We sat with it. We then, had conversation about it. And I can see how these experiences can possibly pull couples apart from one another, because at first, even though Dan was like the only person I wanted to be with at the time, I also felt kind of ashamed. And it definitely was like a little bit of a shameful experience. So it was tough. We then had to call our families, which our families actually handled it way better than I kind of expected that they would, but I think that they were just being strong in front of us to support us. And we kind of began the grieving process. It was a lot of emotions. It was just, it was the shock, it was the devastation, all the things. Those are kind of the main two words that are coming to mind. And then it's just sad. It's intensely painful. It's intensely sad. I think too, because you go from so much joy and excitement to then the complete opposite is just ripped out from underneath of you. And then you grieve, and then you have the pain, and it's just from like one side of the spectrum to the other, I think is what makes it so painful. And then you lost a life, you lost a child. I felt very connected to that child spiritually already. I felt very connected while, my ego and mentally I was trying to come to terms with it. I felt very connected with my changing body and everything I was going to experience. And while maybe you could say I didn't know that I was ready and was kind of nervous and, maybe not apprehensive, but it's a big change for anyone. It's a big change as well for someone who's always been super independent and career driven. And, I've always dreamed of having children, but it was a lot. And then to suddenly have it pulled out from you, I didn't realize how ready I was to become a mom and to be a parent and to start this journey until I had it taken from me. And then the process. So one of the things that I really leaned into is, and Dan as well, is not trying to hide these feelings, not trying to push these feelings away. I've done that in the past. I thought at one point that, it was really tough not to cry. I thought not crying was the brave thing to do. I had actually witnessed a boss who had kind of, talked about crying, kind of said what the individual does how not to cry. And I had kind of tried to train myself for a couple years how not to cry, as silly as that is. And in this experience, I realized, no, you know what? It's really brave to show your feelings. It's brave to feel your emotions. It's brave to not skip out on your feelings. So one of my main things was, I was like, okay, I'm surrendering to this. I'm going to feel all of this. I'm going to completely move through this process, no matter how scary and painful it is. And then I don't want to turn my head away from anything that comes up. So I canceled everything that week. I surrendered, and I just did me. I did what I needed to do. And I will say that I feel like I didn't move through it quickly in the event that I bypassed it. I moved through it so quickly because of my spiritual foundation, and I was able to find peace very quickly and almost like saw myself like transcend through the situation. And just, it really showed me the purpose of having this strong spiritual foundation. And yes, there's so many aspects of spirituality and healing modalities that are all fun, but really it's when you're in the depths of despair. Like, that's the reason for it. That's the reason for spirituality, for these foundations, for your faith, is because that is what holds you up when you're falling down. You have something to turn to, something that is bigger than all of us, something more, all the things. And that is really what kept me going. And that is also what really assisted me in moving through the process understanding it and just being able to look at it through the lens of not ignoring the pain, but just, okay, I can't run away from this. What do I need to do with this? And I sat with it. I used all my tools and resources. And then I still had to my body had to physically, naturally release the baby, the sac, the placenta, everything that was happening. And that was weird in that it didn't start immediately, which can be very natural. It can take some time, especially as the body has to first understand, okay, we're not pregnant anymore. And then eventually it will move through things naturally. And everyone's journey is different. I decided to allow the body to go through things naturally. Some people will immediately go through a DNC or take the pill. I really wanted to let our bodies are so smart. Our bodies are so smart that I wanted to allow my body the opportunity for us to really process this gracefully together and to have a closure to it. So I think it was about a week and a couple days. I had found out Tuesday the 20th. It wasn't until that following Friday that I started really getting the cramps, the spotting, little bits of bleeding, kind of like a period, I guess, the initial of a period, but then much more painful. And it was emotional too. And I went through the grace, the sovereignty, the just trying to be at peace with everything. And then I went through a period right before I physically started releasing where I was like, what am I waiting for? I'm like putting my life on hold, waiting for this process to start. I need to keep going. And like mentally, it was tough. It was really, really tough some days. So I went back to more high intensity workouts and just really honored like what I needed in that moment. Some days were light and flowy, and others were more intense, and I needed that fire and some of that more vibrant energy. And, I think that one of the things I learned is that we can feel many things at once. It's okay to feel multiple emotions, to have multiple feelings, and to do what you need for yourself in the moment. I also understood too why when grieving, a lot of people come together and bring people meals. I never really understood that, why, I'd say you lose an individual, a funeral, the community comes together and brings said family meals. I never really understood that until now, and I get it because food is the last thing that you think of. I remember even telling my husband one night where he was like, what do you want for dinner? I was like, honestly, if you want to get fast food, this is probably the one time you can get me to eat fast food because I don't care what I'm physically putting in my body. It was the last thing on my mind. It just didn't. It was like, I know I'm hungry. I know I need to eat, but food is the last thing. And it was really hard. It was hard to cook, hard to do a lot of different things. And that's okay. That's part of the process. It's truly, truly part of the process. And I'm going to go more into in another episode, the feelings, the emotions, all of that. But so basically then my body started processing everything. Started out like a slow period, and then slow menstrual cycle, and then it really ramped up, and I had cramps similar to what I would consider to be contractions. This was my first pregnancy, first and last miscarriage, so I can't speak for all of them and for full pregnancy, but it felt like contractions where I'd be doing one thing, I'd be cleaning, and then I just would get a stab and I'd be doubled over in pain. Or mentally, I couldn't do anything except for sit on the couch. And then from there, my body really ramped up speed. So it was a slow process. It took, I'm still actually having little bits of spotting as I'm sitting here releasing this, but it took just over about a full week until my body was fully able to release the fetus, the sac, everything. And that was really emotional. And the pain was a lot. I was laid out on the couch for days with a heating pad, and I have a pretty high pain tolerance as well. And this really knocked me out. I had days where I was mentally exhausted. I felt almost depressed certain days. I had other days where I needed to move my energy, other ones where I needed to feel the sadness, other days where I really just wanted to nurture myself and do self-care. And other days where I kind of went back to normal life. And then I had other days of just excruciating pain. And I could only sit on the couch and watch Netflix with a heating pad. And that was okay too. And like I said, I really just learned how to surrender to what is, and just accept that I'm not in control. Of course, I used my spiritual practices. I did a lot of work with my body, helping her know that it's safe to release, it's safe to move on. I had a lot of my own private rituals that I will speak to at some point. And yeah, it was just a lot. It's intense. It's intense emotionally, but then it's also really intense physically. And I feel for a lot of people. I will say in the natural process, I did understand, okay, this is why a lot of people get DNCs. However, I didn't want to close out this experience in a hospital with this invasive surgery. For me, doing it naturally is what made sense to me. And it also wasn't an emergency. Yes, there can be risk of infection, but again, our bodies know what they're doing. So hopefully anyone listening never has to go through with this. But if you do, use your intuition. And I did hit a point too where I was like, okay, I might just go ahead and maybe get the pill or something, because I kind of would like to move on as well. You have that emotional, like the waiting game isn't super enjoyable. But I will say when I released, I felt the veil lift, and it was like, whew, it was just like this breath of fresh air. But in the process, what happened as well was, which I was not aware of, is that and I don't have the right terminology, but the colon, similar to when you're giving birth, the colon and your digestive organs and everything like that, they don't entirely stop working, but they just kind of slow down, which can be for a number of different reasons, because they're so focused on the uterus, your female system, everything like that, on pushing out the baby and everything. And similar with a miscarriage as well. And apparently constipation is really prevalent in miscarriage, and I did not know that. And for some of you know my journey and know that I've been very sensitive to constipation, severe constipation in the past. And what had happened was, once I finally released everything, then the day after, realized I hadn't had a bowel movement in a while, and I was still really bloated, super bloated. I had this like pressure that made me feel like I had to pee constantly. Nothing painful, but I then tried to have a bowel movement. I couldn't, but it felt different than any other times. And I've had very severe constipation in the past. And this one, I thought that I was having a bowel obstruction. I thought there might be a block. I didn't really know what was taking place, except things did not feel normal down there. And anyway, to keep a long story as short as possible, because I know a lot of you don't need the details, I just want to hit on the severity of the issue, because it is a very real thing, especially to anyone who's dealt with constipation or digestive issues in the past. Again, you can learn from my unfortunate experience. Had I known about this, I would have done things differently the week leading up. I then started doing all the tricks in the book day of, and that was not in enough time. So basically what happened then, my intestine was expanding and contracting, and my body was going through a lot. Long story short, we don't need to get into the details of it. I was also bleeding super heavily. It was like a whole thing, but I ended up in the ER, which can happen. It ended up being more of a scare than anything, but we did need some assistance on that end. So ended up in the ER, got out, and then went into another kind of like 4 days of recovery. So honestly, the whole process for me was really like a 3-week process, and it's not over yet, but it was, sorry, my dogs are playing next to me. Can you guys go somewhere else? Comic relief throughout all of this. But anyway, so it was really about like a 3-week process that took place. So anyway, it was really about a 3-week process that took place, plus an ER visit, plus all the things. But I am in full recovery now. But yeah, it just, everyone is different. And then since I've been recovering, I've really also been working on going back to my wheelhouse and understanding too that I'm a different person. I'm not the same person I was. I've gone through a major experience. The experience is not over. I'm a different person. My husband is a different person. We're a different couple. It really, it changes you. But I also had days where I was like, and still do. I'm saying this as if it's in the past. It's only like a few days from now, a few days prior, where I have just not felt like myself. I'm like, where's my creative spark? Where's this? Where's that? I want to feel happy. I want to feel all the things. And I had to learn to really just dance with the funk and know that I'm going to have both, and the funk is going to be there. And while I'm not going to integrate it, I need to accept it and embrace it and just dance with it. And sure enough, it shifts a lot faster that way than trying to, again, force things. So it's a lot about surrender, and I had to really surrender. I had to honestly surrender to sitting on the couch for more days in a row, sitting on the couch and being able to do nothing but watch Netflix. I wanted to read. I had different workshops I could catch up on. I had all kinds of things I could watch, but I couldn't physically do it. The only thing I could put my mind on was these silly Netflix series that did nothing for me. However, they also did everything for me. So I just want to put that out there as well, that pain and grief and all the things have so many different layers to them. But within all of that, there's no suffering. None of us are ever suffering. So that was one thing that I really kept suffering out of it, because I was never suffering. Really, we are never suffering. We are just experiencing. So I encourage you to just some food for thought to chew on. And yes, I know you can argue me. I could also argue myself right now. However, suffering is a really strong word. So I just want to put that out there. But yeah, I've been nurturing my body ever since. I've been filling her with the right herbs and teas, fruits and vegetables, the baths, the yoga, the walks, no intensive exercise yet. My body's in full recovery mode. So really just being gentle with her, but then also being gentle with myself. And then if I get a burst of energy and I want to dance around the kitchen or do different things, I allow myself, because it's okay to laugh. It's still, like I said, we can feel a lot of things at once, and that's okay. And it's also okay to have days where sometimes we feel nothing. But you always want to make sure that you're getting yourself out of those days. I've felt the can't concentrate, the depressive symptoms, and everything like that through this process. None of them are sticking with me. I don't identify with any of them, but they're all there. They're all valid. And we can feel a lot of things, but that doesn't mean they have to be ours. So just to put that out there, we can feel, we can experience, but we don't want to latch onto them. We don't want to integrate with them. We don't want to identify with them. We simply want to just be the witness and just witness these experiences, these feelings, these emotions come through us. We feel them, and then we let them pass us by. We don't get stuck in them. I will be coming out with really everything that I did, from my rituals, the food, the healing, the cleansing, all of that. And as well, too, my body also needs comfort right now. We're humans. Comfort is natural. So if I need certain comfort foods or certain things, I allow myself to have them. Yes, I still check ingredient labels. No, I'm not completely throwing everything I know out the window, but I am allowing myself, I'm really feeling into my intuition. This is far past cravings. Cravings have nothing to do with this as we're talking about food. This is intuitively understanding what your body needs and watching the ebbs and flows. And I'm also repairing my uterine system, the uterus, my whole female system as well, because she's been through a lot. My entire body has been through a lot as well. Also my digestive system and all of that. So I'm also on a lot of repair and recovery, all holistically, all natural. There's nothing that I need synthetic or pharmaceutical wise. It can all be done this way. Nothing's a life or death moment, but yeah, it's important. It's all important. So I think that's everything that I want to say. I also had a passing ritual of my little baby. I've written letters to so many letters to my little angel child. I know that this child, the spirit of this child, will be here with me. I'm not going to go into all the different reasonings that I've come up with for this experience, because they're really personal and there's really not one that I can stick to. I think one day I might share them, maybe. I will say the book Spirit Babies, if you're not familiar with it, it was just talked about in my last episode that was recorded a long time before any of this took place, which is, again, just synchronistic, but really actually super grateful as I'm saying this out loud. Really, really grateful for that conversation and that book. I had actually skipped over the chapters in the book about miscarriage and abortion and having trouble getting pregnant, miscarriage and adoption and having trouble getting pregnant, because I was like, well, these don't apply to me. And then I had to go back and read them. But Spirit Babies is really, really helpful for anyone going through this. It doesn't give you a why, but it gives you something a little more tangible to hold on to, because, there's everyone out there who says, oh, this happens to everyone. It's nature's way of preparing the body for pregnancy. It's this and that and all the things. And I know that anyone who has ever said anything like that is doing that to comfort me, is trying to give me reassurance, trying to give other people reassurance, all from the purest of intention and from caring about that person and wanting to say something to make that person feel better. However, a lot of those things actually make a person feel worse. So I think that's a big thing here is, for me, I had a lot of things said to me that I know came from the purest of intention. So I didn't look poorly upon them, but a lot of dialogues really, really stung. And I know that when they were said as ways to comfort me. I had so many different things said to me, so many different things said that I wanted to strangle the person on the other end, but I knew that they didn't mean anything bad by it. They were simply trying to help give me comfort and love and reassurance. And I will say that there are things to say and things not necessarily that. There's things you want to hear and things you don't want to hear when you're going through this. And some words you'll find comfort in, others will do the exact opposite. So for anyone, I don't want to stop anyone from comforting me or anyone in the future. I think it's just important to understand sometimes just letting someone know that you're there for them and that you don't know what to say can sometimes be better than saying other things. But also, just follow your intuition as well. And for anyone going through this, do your best to not get angry at anyone and hold compassion for others if they say something to you that ended up hurting you instead of helping you. They didn't mean it. They really didn't. They were just trying to help. So I hope that is helpful on two sides of the spectrum. But otherwise, yeah, I think that is probably everything I have to say right now. I'm sure I missed a lot, but yeah, I just wanted to give my utmost compassion for those who have experienced this, for anyone else who hasn't experienced this, or has had other pains or whatever it is, it's tough. But, moving forward again, like the love, the support, the gifts, the messages, all of it has been so, so helpful, for everyone. I will say the best thing you can do is know that you don't have to go through this alone. It's a very taboo subject, and I really hope that it won't be. So my wish is to continue speaking about this, maybe a little more eloquently the next time. I just really wanted to, like I said, this is a really hard thing to talk about. So I wanted to get my perspective out, share my story as step one, and then we'll kind of go from there. But please know you're not alone. Please also do yourself a favor, feel all of your feelings. It's one of the most important things you can do for yourself. Just don't get stuck in them. Surrender where needed and do what you need. And know that what you will need will look different for everyone. And every day is going to look different. Every week's going to look different. Sometimes every hour. And that's totally okay as well. So have compassion for yourself. We're all only doing the best we can. Have compassion for others, whether they're grieving, whether someone's trying to support you. We're all one. We all want what's best for one another. And we are all always trying to support and love one another, which is exactly what I'm trying to do here for all of you. Like I said at the beginning, this episode is not for me. It's for you. And with that, I think I'm going to sign off for now. But as always, I so appreciate you guys for tuning in here, listening to my story, listening to everything we share about on the podcast. And likewise, if you need support, if you have questions, if you want to chat further about this topic, if you know someone who needs support, reach out, send them my way, send yourself my way, send your friends my way, whatever it may be, and find something to be grateful for today if you haven't yet, because there's always at least one thing that we can be grateful for every day, no matter what is going on. And I look forward to continuing the journey with you again soon.